And with that, welcome in. It is a simulcast on a Tuesday evening, live on MLE's or Minor League Esports, and also live on Downshift Esports. It's the Downshift Esports Week 8 Street Stock League race at USA International. I'm Chris Curtis along with Brian Schubert. And Chief, we've got a good race on a very short track, last short track of the regular season for Downshift.
I'm excited to see what USA International Speedway will be bringing us today, Curtis, for a few reasons. Not only is this my debut on a racetrack that turns only one direction left, but I think for a lot of our MLE viewers, this is going to be the first time they're going to see cars actually on the ground, not doing musties, not doing breezies, but they're going to be driving in a circle. And with that being said, Curtis, what can we expect today out of this very tiny track?
Well, it is a tiny track, as you alluded to, and it also can get really loose at times. We saw earlier in the season in Downshift that really it can be quite chaotic, especially with a good number of cars on the track. A number of drivers were here when we were here previously. So this is the second race of the season at USA International. We are in Florida with a night track. For the other one during the season was the daytime version of this venue. So this is going to change the track temperature. It's going to change the way these cars drive, and probably a lot of the configurations going forward. Downshift Esports presented by Minor League Esports. We welcome those of you spending your Tuesday evening with us. I've got both chats going. I see a whole mess of people in a whole bunch of different places chatting up about this race. It should be a good one, no doubt. It's just staying alive with us in the booth as well. He's hitting all the buttons, making us sound better than we actually do in real life. So there's that. Huge thanks to him. And Brian, we've got qualifying coming up. Open qualifying for 5 minutes on USA International. That gets chaotic in itself on a 0.6 mile track.
And just to put into context what this track is like, our previous race winner, Jimmy Hayden, turned a lap time of 22 seconds. That is quite quick. Again, especially coming from the road racing side where you're expecting to see these 2-minute long lap times. I mean, these drivers are going to be turning laps very quickly. And since it is such a small circuit today, Curtis, are we going to be expecting to see a lot of cautions?
Cautions will happen, I have a feeling. I'm hoping they don't happen in the same abundance they have in previous races this season, but you never know. Could be a decent amount of fun to find out just how aggressive these guys get going into the second time here at USA International. The cautions, I think we had close to 10 in the previous iteration of this track just a few weeks ago. So I'm looking to see if they can lower that a little bit. Other than that, it's going to be a game of restarts, a game of tire changes, and who's going to have the best pit strategies coming into and out of those cautions.
And especially what I'm going to be looking for is our drivers during their mid-stints, their final stints. What I mean by a stint is when your tires are starting to degrade, which means they're starting to go away, you're starting to run out of fuel, you've been on the track for a while, what that car is going to be doing. What we're going to be seeing is some weight transfer, maybe some oversteer, which means the back end starts to step out. And when you're pack racing, when you have 20-odd cars around you, whenever you have a little wiggle, a little bobble like that, it can have just a catastrophe take place. It can just be a chain reaction, and these small tracks have unfortunately been notorious for throwing those yellows when drivers just get a little bit too carried away and they're not monitoring those tires during the latter parts of this stint.
Yeah, exactly. 120 laps going to be at USA International today. We're just about minute 45 ahead of qualifying starting here, and then we'll get gridded up and get going green flag racing. Let's take a look real quick as we enter week 8. The score for the league at this point, Downshift in the 8th week of I believe it's a 10-week season. Yes, a 10-week season. And let's see where everything sits. So you can see on your screen week 8 where we're at right now, 11:30. Charlotte is next week. That's always a fun one. And then we round out with Phoenix, and this is the last track we have in front of us that's less than a mile long as far as laps go. So this becomes the last short track, and there's a lot of drivers in the Downshift ecosystem that thrive on short tracks, and we have to talk about one Jimmy Hayden, who has a majority of wins on short tracks this season.
Jimmy Hayden has 4 wins to their belt, and not only just circle tracks or short tracks, he also won Lime Rock in the previous week, week 7, and that is a road course. I mean, Jimmy Hayden has not only been dominant here on the ovals in the street stocks, but as well as the Formula V's, our road racing only series. I mean, Jimmy Hayden has put a clinic on, and he does have real world racing experience. He has dirt go-karts as experience, and man, has he been just mopping the field with every single one of these races.
There have been a couple of races that he has not won, but they are fewer and farther between, all told. So looking forward to see the where everything shakes out. But we started things in Charlotte. We go there next week as well, and then you have Phoenix, where we actually had the recruitment race before week 1 got started. We were there to try to get more drivers into the league, and that turned out to be a pretty good success, as we had a handful sign up just after that. But qualifying just getting going here in very short order. They're going over the driver's briefing right now, and then fastest lap over the 5-minute span of open qualifying will get you your pole sitters, and then we'll go over grid and see how everything shakes out. We've got a full roster. We've got 7, 14, 21, 22 drivers on a 0.6 mile track. That is going to be a pretty busy field, and that's where we want to talk about, Brian. The amount of cautions could fluctuate based on the traffic that's out there today. It could be a mess, but we've also seen some pretty clean driving from a lot of these drivers as well, so it could be fun.
And when we look at the points championship, when yellows take place on such a small track, even if it's an accident in the mid-pack towards the rear end of the field, since it's such a small circuit, if Jimmy Hayden or Sean Ryan are 2 forerunners in the championship, if they get involved in any incidents whatsoever, that might be the undoing of their championship run. Because when there's 5 points between first and second place, everything matters. Your track position, your qualifying position, how you're running, when you're going into the pits for refueling, for your tire strategies, it really starts to matter. With only 3 weeks left, all eyes on Jimmy Hayden and Sean Ryan.
Yeah, exactly. You have Sean Ryan, of course. You have Cole Meichert, who won the previous season at Downshift as well, and he's sitting in number 3. He's a little bit farther back, but not to be outdone. He's still got a couple of races to make up some points, so it'll be a fun adventure to see how well he does in that particular area. Daniel Anderson has had quietly one of the more consistent seasons this season, as he has not been in the winner's circle, but at the same point has been top 5, top 10 a majority of weeks. That's why he's able to sneak in to the number 4 spot, as you see there. It's not all about wins. Wins do help, but it's not all about wins in these standings.
It's consistency that's truly what I look for, because Sean Ryan has yet to actually win a race. Plenty of top 3s, plenty of top 5s, but he has built his season based off consistency, and that's where he wants to be. Sometimes, Curtis, it's best to be that second place driver. Sometimes, especially on a track like this, where you're going to see, maybe not quite to the extent of a track like Charlotte Daytona, but drafting is relevant. And sometimes you want to be running in second for as long as possible, so you can use that draft to be able to usurp the position of the driver in front of you.
Yeah, drafting I don't think will be as prevalent today. It'll be a matter of more surviving in a lot of cases. The main thing for a track like this is just making sure you stay out of heavy traffic. And if you're with heavy traffic, make sure you trust the people around you to the best of your ability. You will not see 3 wides for very long on this track. I say that because you will see them, but they don't last long, because typically there's 1 or 2 ways. Either somebody's in the wall or somebody's in the grass. There isn't a lot of leeway either way. The other thing to think about too is the pit lanes on this track. You have 1 on each side, and both of them are really they're really kind of awkward as to where they're at, and you don't have a lot of advance to get into a lane to get into pit row. So this becomes a very dangerous area. We probably won't see a lot of green flag pit stops, all told, but if we do, that's definitely something to watch.
So is there a best qualifying line or strategy coming into this? Is it best to wait in the pits maybe a few minutes to kind of let the chaos take place, maybe let those jitters shake off a bit of some of those newer drivers, or should you be rolling out into the field right now and start putting laps down?
I mean, it's real. Oh, you see the 00 get into the wall there on the backstretch. That was Jacob Newman out there. The issue that you're going to find, there really isn't a best way. It's just a matter of which way you're more comfortable with. When do you want a lot of traffic out there while you're trying to run your best line, which is going to be inside the turns, and there's not a ton of banking, but there is a little bit, and then outside in the straights. But this course, because of the shortness of it, kind of reminds you of a late model track. You have, for those that run dirt models, that have seen dirt models run, where the length of the track, you're on a straightaway for about maybe 2 seconds before you're looking to get the inside line on the next turn. That you have a lot of people that are going to try to take that same line, but if you're in an area with a lot of traffic, like an open qualifying session like this, maybe it makes sense to wait a minute for people to get their laps out. But if you wait too long, then you limit yourself in the amount of time you have to put a good lap up.
Well, let's dive on board right now with Jimmy Hayden and see what a fast lap looks like here at USA International Speedway. Again, it is under a mile, ladies and gentlemen, 3/4 of a mile track. And these drivers are going to be turning incredibly fast lap times. Look for about 22, 23 seconds. That's the ideal lap time here. And maybe we're going to see drivers start to drop into the mid sections of the 22. We're just going to have to see what they're putting out. Now, if you're asking, why is the 24 doing some bobbly stuff? Well, they're just trying to be able to put some temperature into those tires. Because again, this is a night circuit. The ambient temperature is low. The track surface is also low temperature-wise, and you have to put lots of heat into the brakes and the slick tires.
81 degrees Fahrenheit track temperature going in on the surface. So that's going to be, and these guys know how to put temperature into the tracks. As we were talking to our race control, Ben Ruprecht, earlier, he mentioned he has no problem or no misgivings about these racers being able to put themselves in a position where they can heat up the track for themselves and everybody else. You see Jimmy Hayden there, actually, you're on board with him as well. He is actually keeping more of an outside track on those turns. He's not quite towards the bottom of the track, but he is running up towards the wall for sure on that outside line. So curious to see where he stays consistently when he actually goes to run his good lap. Right now, he's got your top lap time, 22 and 84/100ths of a second is your qualifying time to beat right now. 22:92. Tyler Tomasi just behind him, and then Chad Bass in the third spot. A couple of Chad Bass and Tyler Tomasi, a couple of newcomers to the downshift circuit over the last few weeks. Tyler Tomasi, I believe, actually does have a pole to his credit earlier on in the season. So good driver for him in qualifying. See if he can get a good lap time here and stay up front with the likes of Jimmy Hayden, and I'm sure we'll probably see Cole Mykrit and a couple of others creep their way up towards the front of the pack.
Tomasi also has a race win back in week 6. That was south of Boston that he was able to secure that victory. And going back to the point, Curtis, that you were mentioning earlier, why our drivers are electing multiple lines. So on an oval track like this, if you go for the lower line, which is closest to the infield, now that requires the driver to put more wheel in, potentially slow the car down more, but you do travel a shorter radius, which means you go less of a distance. Now, if you go on the outside lane, you don't have to deaccelerate the race car as much, and you don't have to put as much wheel in, but at the opportunity cost of going a further distance. And it just comes down to what is the lesser of the evils. Is a shorter radius or a longer radius? Uh-oh, we're already crashing. I was waiting for this. Is eventually the best way to go. And Curtis, you know what the best way to go is actually? Not crashing into your fellow mates.
Yeah, that's usually a pretty good way to do it. That's absolutely a good way to do it. We have a whole bunch of racers in the pits after their qualifying time has come up. We're getting down to the last part of qualifying, last minute, and we will get things underway here in very short order. But a great, very big welcome to those of you just joining us, Chris Curtis and Brian Schubert, along with Jesse English, or just staying alive in the booth, hitting all the buttons for us. It is Downshift Esports, presented by Minor League Esports. It is week number 8 of the Downshift regular season in the Street Stock League, and very, very pleased to be joined by all of you, and those of you that are seeing Downshift Esports for the first time. the biggest welcome to those that are in that boat. As we are, if you guys have an iRacing subscription and you guys are looking for a place to ease into competitive iRacing, Downshift Esports is the place for you. DownShiftEsports.com. You can also reach them on Facebook and Twitter. Links are there to get into the Discord and get yourselves signed up. It is not too late to sign up. You can at least get yourself going for the last couple of races of the regular season and then get prepared for next season as well. So big things coming from the group, as you see Coy McGrath on your screen right there. The superior McGrath. He has his brother Kenny, who is racing with him in this league, and Coy and Kenny, a little bit of competitive banter between the two of them on a pretty regular basis.
That's not all, Curtis. Coy, in 2 races ago in the Formula V League, he gave himself his own special title. He referred to himself as the most sexy, hottest driver in Downshift Esports. Now, I can't verify that, but that's the title he gave himself. And you know what? We're just going to allow him to bask in all that glory.
The self-proclaimed superior McGrath, I think, is where we need to go with that. But qualifying has officially gotten to the point where it is done, I do believe. So we'll get things gridded up here and get them going. Looks like it is going to indeed be Jimmy Hayden getting another pole. He's got a couple of them this season. When he actually bested his best lap time, 22:82 is where he ended up. Tyler Tomasi in number 2 and Chad Bass 3. And why don't you give us the next 6 if you can? Oh wait, actually things are still changing, so we'll wait it out and wait for things to finish gridding. But yeah, it's there's a whole lot of recognizable names for those that do follow Downshift. Jimmy Hayden, your most popular one, obviously. Cole Mykert, we talked about him. Brian Vols, another one, the 44 car. You'll see a bunch of him. He's had a run of very rough luck this season, and it all started back at Charlotte, where he was not able to finish the race. I think it was 20 laps in, and his engine blew. So that just started a bit of a chain reaction for him later in the season.
What about that 9 car of Sean Ryan sitting in the back portion of our qualifying field? Again, Sean Ryan is currently sitting 2nd in the points championship, and qualifying bottom 15 is not the place where he wants to be. Again, USA International Speedway, a very small track, under a mile. And when we go green eventually for our main event, he's going to be 8 to 9 rows back right now if he maintains that qualifying order. That is not a good place to be if you are in the run for the points championship.
But you know what? If you wanted the dark horse that's sitting in the back of the pack or middle of the pack in qualifying and has a chance to run up to the top of the grid, Sean Ryan is absolutely your guy. Yeah. He is comfortable in those high traffic situations. We've seen it time and time again, week in and week out, with his driving ability, that he is able to navigate with the best of them. So he will not be back there long if he is indeed stuck back there, as long as things don't happen that are not of his own volition.
Well, that week 7 event going to the road course back over at Lime Rock, I mean, the race was won because of lap traffic. Jimmy Hayden put on a technical clinic on how to negotiate lap traffic, and Sean Ryan just couldn't time any of those passes. And it eventually came down to, I would say, like the first 15 laps was a beautiful battle, and then all of a sudden, Jimmy Hayden just pulled away because of the drafts in those Formula Vs. Now, as you mentioned earlier, Curtis, we're not going to quite have the draft in such a small circuit and in these street stocks, but still, it's something that you have to be mindful of, because if you're an expert at oval negotiation, going through all that lap traffic, that's an asset to have, but on that road course, Ryan was unable to put it together. But fortunately, it's only left turns today, my friend.
Yep, it is indeed. I want to mention Leachy Live, who's in the Twitch chat at ML Esports GG. He's actually rooting for Andrew Hardcastle because the name is awesome. I cannot help but agree. He's also a pretty good human being, so there's that as well. So that's definitely not a bad guy to root for. We've all got our favorites. We've all got our underdogs who we like to see do some good work. Noah Davis has been one that's been another one that's had some really rough luck going in. Look, he's trying to get things turned around. Jet Champ, another one. Arthur Clements, and our very own Jesse English, who is in the booth with us this week, is not racing because he's sitting back here hitting buttons for us. So give Jesse some love if you guys can in chat and those of you that are racing that can hear us as well, for not getting in the car this week and jumping on with us.
Wow. Jesse English, sacrificing iRacing for a production? That's a hard one, man. I think I'd prioritize hopping in the race car, personally speaking. But each to their own. I mean, Jesse does a wonderful job. And I also, you're supposed to avoid walls. Pro tip there. But I also want to talk about the 44 car, Brian Vols, who is either publishing some of the best laps running up at the front of the field or finding themselves in an unfortunate scenario and ending up crashing out. We see that far too often. The V's. Brian just seems to be the bearer of bad news. But so far today in USA International Speedway, Brian Vols is sitting well in the qualifying order, currently sitting in 9th. And the special thing about that 44 car is Brian is always running the Downshift livery.
That's very true. That's very true. The want to give some love to Drew Akers, who's sitting in the Downshift chat as of right now, along with those that are in there with them. I see Thomas in there, and the reason I call Drew out is because he's not in here with us making it a 3-man booth. So there's that. We miss you, buddy. We miss you. But either way, you stuck me with Chief, and I guess I'll have to work with it. That's all right.
I feel bad for you, man.
I feel bad for you.
I also feel bad for whoever that was crashing into the wall. Now, I saw somebody in the MLE chat asking, do these cars actually crash? Are there damage models? Absolutely, my friend. I promise you, when we were talking about throwing yellows and seeing crashes, it will unfortunately happen. I do say unfortunately, coming from real racing. Like, you never want to see crashes, even in a virtual space like this. But, you know, it's like Rocket League, right? If you get demoed, say la vie.
Yeah, exactly. Except for in iRacing, you don't get to wait 3 seconds to play again. You could potentially be wrecked for the entirety of the race. That being said, we have our grid. Jimmy Hayden, your pole sitter. Let's go through them here. I'll give you 6, and then you give me 6. Jimmy Hayden, Tyler Tomasi, Sean Ryan, 1, 2, 3. That's your row 1 and inside row 2. Chad Bass outside row 2. Andrew Starzum comes through and gets the 5 spot. He's inside row 3. Cole Microt is outside of him. And that is your top 6 in qualifying. Sean Ryan, who was middle of the pack in qualifying, has jumped up to the 3 spot.
Paul Nelson in that 7th spot. Gareth Crawford in 8th. Brian Vols, who we were talking about earlier in that 44 car, rocking the Downshift Esports livery. Caleb Clifton, a standout performer in the Formula V series. Anderson in 11th, and Kogar in 12th.
Yeah, that's a pretty good top 12, to be honest with you. Yeah, Logan Kogar, who was not a name that I've seen just yet. There's Leachy's favorite, Andrew Hardcastle in 13th. That's inside row 7. Coy McGrath is outside row 7. Noah Davis, Chad Lancaster in row 8. And then row 9 is Jacob Newman and Kenny McGrath. Why don't you finish it up?
After that, it is Ricey, a name that I'm not familiar with. Brandon Ricey in the 22 car, sitting 19th. Beach Camp in the 20th spot. After that, it's going to start to get to the chaos, so you have to start to hopefully avoid what's going on. Arthur Clemens is a good driver. We actually saw him race very well in our road race in the previous weekend. Jason Heisey, a familiar face coming in from the Formula Vs, but unfortunately he doesn't have the luxury of turning right today.
A couple of pronunciation corrections as well, just for your sake and for mine. Brandon Ritchie and Jet Biachamp.
See, I have a degree in finance, and there's a reason why I went finance and supply chain management and not in English.
I feel that entirely. We are go on the track. It is Jimmy Hayden up front with the pace car just in front of him. I believe it's going to give us 2 pace laps before all is said and done, as the lights are still out as we see fit. You'll see Jimmy Hayden actually like to get inside of the pace car just because it's a ghost model. But either way, that's always kind of fun. But either way, it should be fun. Pace car going to get off the track here soon. This will be a pretty good test, these first couple laps, to see how aggressive they want to be, how much control these drivers have over their vehicles. That's going to be the big telltale sign about how this race is going to go for really all of these drivers, especially ones that are a bit accident prone themselves.
And the thing with this formulation lap, it's more than just putting temperature in the tires and the brakes. It is called a sighting lap technically for a reason. You want to use that good driver vision to look at the apex, look at your braking points, especially if you're in the back portion of the field. You want to see what those apexes and braking points look like when there's traffic around you, when the field starts to pan out. And you also want to get a good understanding of the grip level. If you want to run alternate lines, we're talking about the high line, we talked about the low line earlier. This is now your opportunity to kind of have a gauge to see what those lines are going to be like when you actually start to go hot.
And we'll see what happens. We're going to get hot here pretty quick. As pace car is off the track, we are green flag racing for 120 laps at USA International Speedway in the Sunshine State. Chris Curtis and Brian Schubert along with you for the ride in Week 8 of Downshift Esports, presented by Minor League Esports. We are underway, and Jimmy Hayden off to a pretty good start with Tyler Tomasi behind him. And Tomasi did not let Hayden get too far out ahead with as Hayden likes to do off of those green flag starts.
We're already starting to see this band of brothers forming between Jimmy Hayden and Tyler Tomasi, where they're just slotting in line right behind each other, and this is an opportunity just to push each other on forward. You want to try to separate from Sean Ryan and the 9 car in that third place spot as quickly as possible. You want to make sure that you do not battle early for 2 reasons. One, when you start to fight, when you start to battle the drivers around you, it slows you down and allows more drivers to catch back up to you, but it starts to burn tires as well, and that's a crucial thing. When you have 120 laps, you want to keep as much tire below you as possible.
You see, these guys, you talk about the shortness of these laps, these guys have already run now close to 3 laps, and we've been green flagged for not even 2 minutes. And that is our first caution of the race, as well as we have the yellow flag out on lap number 4. We'll see if we can get a report as to what exactly happened, but our first one happening just a couple laps in.
Now, do our drivers have access to a fast repair, or do they have to actually sit in pits the entire time to fix the damage?
They have to. There's minimum sometimes of 30-second fixes, if not longer, depending on the longevity. So I'm pretty sure, depending on the degree, I'm pretty sure they have to sit in the pits for that time frame.
Oof, that's a bitter pill to swallow as we see what the incident was. Again, you have so many cars trying to occupy a very small space. You're starting to get racy early on, and when you drop your driver's left tire in the apron like that, it induces oversteer, forcing the car to spin. It has to do with the surface change, the camber change, the racing surfaces.
Yeah, I think that was actually is that Jet Be a Champ that ended up spinning out on the inside there?
Fortunately, I didn't catch a number.
Yeah, no, I'm sorry. It was Andrew Hardcastle, the 20 car.
Oh no!
Unfortunately,
the favorite.
So Leachy's did not necessarily make it through that. So we'll see where he ends up and see how long, see as he's back at the grid now. So it'll be I want to see where he ends up through all of this. That's unfortunate, but that it definitely is what it is when you lose. We may see more than one of those incidents where the spins just kind of happen to get loose on one of those turns, and it just USA can take you on a ride if you let it. So you really got to show some control,
especially at a night circuit like this where ambient temperature and track temperature is low. Cars are going to want to oversteer because you just don't have the tire adhesion that you would normally have. So the way I look at it, it's ambient temperature plus 30 degrees usually gets you about racing surface temperature. So ideally for me, at least in my spec racer, I look for like 110 is about optimized, or probably, yeah, it's probably the best surface temperature to have. That's where you have the maximum adhesion of those tires.
Yeah, you also, as it gets colder, the tires are going to wear differently as well. It takes them a little more wear to be able to get to heat up and get that rubber to the point where it's a suitable temperature for optimum control. But you also don't want to go too hot, which you're talking about that 110 range. That would qualify, 110, 112 would probably qualify as too hot. And you start to see that they will continue to wear down probably at a more advanced level when you have it that hot.
Man, I wish I could do this in real life, what Jimmy Hayden's doing, just becoming the pace car himself by driving through it. That's something that doesn't happen in the real world, unfortunately, ladies and gentlemen. It defies physics, I think we'll say. Now, again, I have a degree in finance, so I'm definitely not an astrophysicist here, but I don't think it quite works that way.
Yeah, would tend to agree. But we are under our first caution of the day. I believe pace car is still out. We'll probably see one more. Yeah, we'll see one more lap going for the caution, and then we'll get everybody gridded back up and ready to go for our next restart. We're about 7.25 laps through of this 120, and we've already had our first caution. We see Twitch chat lighting up asking how many cautions we're going to have today. 6 or 7 seems to be the most logical guess. I think I'm going to go a little bit higher than that. I'm going to say 9.
I'm going to say
it's
10.
Better than last time, but not all that great. And hopefully I'm wrong. But pace car's off the track. We're ready to go. Green flag racing one more time. And Jimmy Hayden gets to test out his restart skills as you see a 4-pack of cars right in the same spot as it is immediately Tomasi, Mykert, and Ryan. Cole Mykert's taken the 3 spot away from Sean Ryan on that restart, interestingly enough. That's something to watch out for. See if Sean Ryan, how long it takes him to get to a spot to maybe take that 3rd spot back.
Jimmy Hayden started the inside line, but the green flag dropped. He went immediately up driver's right to go for the high line for the better optimized line, and that slowed him down just a bit as Tomasi was right behind his bumper. You mentioned that 4-car train, and now we're starting to see the gaps building between Tomasi as well as Mykert and Ryan. They have to make sure that they stay behind the bumper of the 53 car. And as Tomasi goes for one of the first passes that we've seen in the upper echelon of this field, the top end of the field, that's only going to create this huge air dam and allow Ryan and Mykert to come from behind.
Yeah, exactly. It slows down the top 2 racers and lets 3 and 4 come up right behind him. But credit to Tomasi. He went at the king, and he did not miss. Went ahead and got a pass on Jimmy Hayden, your points leader in the championship standings. Now we'll see how long Tomasi can hold it. But that's a nice start for him as Hayden's going to be looking at his bumper for a little bit. Something to note, straightaways, you're going about probably 110 at optimum speeds. In those turns, you are dropping down to close to 80, 82 miles an hour on each of those turns. That is a very big difference between speeds, and you do not have a lot of time to be able to get your car down to that speed. That's something to keep an eye on going forward because it creates more braking and, again, more tire wear. There's only 4 sets for each driver on this track, so you have to be really careful on how you use your tires, especially if multiple pit stops are required.
Want to dive over to Brian Vols in the 44 car, starting to work his way up through the field. He started in 9th, and now he's all the way up to 6th, and he has great competition all around him. Again, Brian Vols was coming in from the road racing discipline, and he's starting to find himself a brand new home here over on oval tracks. He's done a wonderful job, but we have to monitor him throughout the race because, unfortunately, both on the oval side and the Formula V side, Brian Vols always seems to get involved in accidents that aren't his fault.
Yeah, it's or some that are, and they're not necessarily by his own volition. Jimmy Hayden going for a pass on the inside, trying to take the lead right back from Tomasi. They are door to door on turn 3, and Hayden's going to go for the pass, and he will get it. And don't look now, but Cole Mykert's right on their bumper as well. You have the top 4 racers in this race. They are separated by less than a second so far in this go. So very good stuff from those top 4, including Jimmy Hayden up front.
Mykert is one of the other drivers that is now up 3 positions. He's another driver that's also, I believe, been able to win a race. No, he has been unable to do so, but he's been running up in the top 3, top 5 most of our Downshift Esports events currently in week 8. And he's probably one of those drivers that potentially is a favorite to win this race. He's also currently sitting 3rd place in the points championship, and this is an excellent position for him to be in because he's currently in front of the 2nd place driver, Sean Ryan.
Yeah, for those of you that are coming into Minor League Esports Twitch chat wondering what kind of ranked mode this is for Rocket League, it's not Rocket League. We're racing. We are on iRacing. It's the Downshift Esports Street Stock League presented by Minor League Esports Chris Curtis. Might be a familiar name to some of you. And then and Brian Schuper making his MLE debut as we have our 2nd caution of the day on lap 19, as we'll get to see what that's all about here in very short order. But they will slow down again, and it'll give another opportunity for a green flag restart that keeps everybody close.
Another one of these accidents, again, we alluded to, we're going to be seeing multiple of these today. Curtis, you predicted 9, I predicted 10. The reason why we're going to see so many, probably more than the last time we saw USA International back in week 3, is because we're in the latter stages of the season and drivers are going to start to get more aggressive. And just like that aggression showed on track, I mean, these drivers are going to be battling for position. Doesn't matter if we're in lap 19 or in lap 119.
Yep. That was Paul Nelson, actually, who spun on the outside there, that causing that caution, or so it would seem. But they were able to get down into the apron. I think a little bit of a perhaps premature caution thrown by iRacing there. But either way, we do have our second one of the day, as they were able to clean off track pretty quickly, unless, of course, they were trying to prevent maybe these drivers from getting back up onto the track at a dangerous level. So that's a good safety call if that's the case. But our second one of the day could bring us to probably lap 22 before things are done. No, it looks like we have a couple that hit the pits. Not on this particular lap anyway. Andrew Hardcastle and Jacob Newman had pits on lap 5, and that is basically it. But nobody really taking those opportunities as they come. I think everybody's kind of planning on a decent number of opportunities via cautions to get into the pit box to change tires.
Is Jimmy Hayden still in first, or is he now 21 positions down? Because I see him currently in first, but on my timing and scoring, he's 21 positions down. So I think iRacing is trolling me. Okay, because his car is there. No problem there. Timing sheet's accurate as far as that goes. We are good for first place for one Jimmy Hayden. Behind him, Tyler Tomasi, who they've been trading back and forth a little bit. Cole Micret, Sean Ryan, 1, 2, 3, 4. Chad Bass, who's had a pretty good day so far, down one position from his start in 5th spot, with Brian Vols, who you alluded to earlier, in the 6th spot, 3 spots up from his number 9 start. And I can confirm, ladies and gentlemen, if you're coming in from MLE, this is not an SSL match. This is probably closer to bronze, because I've yet to see them aerial. Actually, I've yet to see him hit the ball. They're whiffing.
To be fair, it's USA International, and they probably are going to need some kind of air roll to be able to keep themselves straight. The way
or
this
power
track
slide at least.
Go. At least a power slide. Yeah, we've seen a couple of those. Sometimes they overslide, but either way. But
I think
Jimmy
good
stuff.
Hayden's just capitalizing all the boost pads. He's just running them over.
Terrible. The Rocket League puns probably are not going to stop. Oh, SSL equals Street Stock League according to Turbo Bowl. Yes, that is absolutely true. Nice work. I like it. Pace cars off the track. We're ready to go as everyone's gritted back up. Another green flag restart on lap number 24 as they cross the start-finish line. And Jimmy Hayden off to a good start, but he's got company immediately. He has not quite been able to get the restarts on this track that he would like. But we know, if anything, the short tracks belong to him so far this season. He has proved everything, or proven that on a number of occasions.
Once again, Jimmy Hayden elects to go for the outside line. We saw him accelerate right as a green flag dropped. He wants to make sure the drivers around him do not get the optimal line. He wants to slow them down entering into turn number 1. Jimmy Hayden's already put on a masterclass of great racing off the green flag, and Curtis, he's going to have to demonstrate it once again as we go yellow for the 3rd time.
Yep, 3rd caution of the day is where we end up sitting. We'll see if we can get a video exactly what happened there. But this was a green flag restart that went pretty okay, and Kenny McGrath, we're focusing on the 15 here, as he actually might have gotten quarter paneled going into that turn. And Brandon Ritchie might have gotten up and gotten his bumper, unfortunately. And we'll see if that is indeed. We'll see it again here. Nope, maybe not. Might have just lost it. I'm not sure if 22 made contact or not. From that angle, it didn't look like he did.
Unfortunately, we saw some great runs out of Kenny McGrath. He was up 7 spots going into the second caution
he did.
On lap 19, and then he was the cause of that second crash. And once again, we talked about the series of unfortunate events. I guess McGrath is going to have to change his last name to Baudelaire.
Well, that time I can't really say it was necessarily all his fault. That was Brandon Ritchie, who definitely got under the bumper of him and spun him out going into that turn. So that'll put us single file in caution. Lap 27 is where we are at the moment. Only about a half a mile from Lakeland, Florida, which is the spring training home for the Detroit Tigers. And those that follow baseball, they had a pretty good free agent signing today. And if you don't follow baseball, well, then that's fine. You don't have to. Everyone can be wrong on occasion. But yeah, no, it's a very, very nice place. This kind of temperature is what you look for basically the entire winter long. At 81 degrees in the track temp, it's also pretty humid, all told, with the water around. So that makes a lot of sense. But the makes for some pretty decent racing temperatures, and we saw a very competitive race here a few weeks ago. And the way things are going, hopefully the cautions slow down and we have a green flag run for a little while, but the competitiveness really hasn't gone anywhere.
Curtis, can I make a confession, my friend?
You don't follow
the
baseball,
reference
do you?
you're making was a football reference.
I mean, it's a good thing we're casting racing. It's fine.
At least I understand that. My three brain cells can process, right foot goes to the throttle, either left or right, depending on what school of thought you come from, goes to the brake, and then left foot always to the clutch. I understand that. My brain can process that. Beyond that, in other sports where there's balls flying around, maybe other than Rocket League, that's all my three brain cells can do.
One more lap from the pace car as the lights are off and everyone's gridded back up. Shouldn't be too long before we're green flag racing again. Should get to lap 29, all told. Pace cars off, and we are ready to go for another green flag start. And again, it is Jimmy Hayden who sneaks out in front. This time got a decent start for sure. Tomasi not quite able to match him, but he's able to catch up fairly quickly. He's on the bumper of Hayden. There's contact there. Hayden trying to keep it together. He goes towards the outside wall, and he at least keeps it straight as everybody seems to be in single file for the first 5 cars or so.
Well, Mike in the 3 car, also in the 3rd place spot right now. He is loving the action in front of him. Cars sideways at the front straight. The 7 forced to try to save it. That's Noah Davis creating a catastrophe in the midway through, but I don't think people made contact there. Great heads-up driving, because that could have just been half of the field wiped out in one single blow.
Yeah, that would have been a massive collection, and very good work from Noah Davis to try to keep it under control to the best of his ability. He unfortunately will have to pay the price. He does keep it straight, does keep it on track at least. He might have some control issues on that particular go, but at least he's bringing it around, and no pit stop for him on that. He'll just lose some positions, it looks like.
Whew. Here it is again. Oh, the inside apron. Not the first time that we've seen this take place today, and great job from Davis to keep that 7 car more or less in a straight line. If he completely looped it there, if he went counter track with it or faced up track, I mean, you could see the drivers already starting to fan out, trying to avoid it. Brian Vols was also involved in an incident in front of that with a 16 car as well.
You saw as well, I believe that was Andrew Hardcastle who was actually behind him. Good awareness from Hardcastle to be able to avoid the impending doom as he was able to sneak in front of him. Good driving there from Hardcastle, great awareness, and good work from the majority of the middle of the field to stay out of that mess. We're about lap 34 as we get past the 25% mark of this race. 120 laps on the docket here at USA International. Good stuff from the top 4 drivers. Really, they've been super clean, super competitive, and a couple of them going into the pits as well, as we have actually plenty going into the pits. Seem to have started a bit of a domino effect, as we have got half the field going in for new tires, at the very least, if not a little bit of fuel as well.
Well, if you see the leader, Jimmy Hayden, go into the pits and you're sitting in the back portion of the field, maybe midway through, sometimes it's best to just follow that leader in, go into the pits, and try to chase or follow him when you emerge out of the pits right behind him. Use that speed. Again, we're not going to see a lot of drafting here at USA International Speedway, but what you can do is you can almost ride the bumper of the driver in front of you and kind of use them to carry you all the way through the field. Now, if you're Sean Ryan or Tomasi, who are still sitting in first and second place, Sometimes it's best just to wait, run the car long. You're starting to burn more fuel, which means the car is going to be lighter, but that also means you're going to have the car just a little bit faster since you don't have to lug all that extra fuel weight around.
Something to think about as well. After the amount of cautions that we've had, there is nobody that is a lap behind currently. Everyone's on the lead lap, except for, as I say that, Richie and Clements go down just barely. So not really a lot of lucky dog opportunities, or if there were, they were swallowed up fairly quickly as we get everybody gridded back up and ready to go as we go to roughly lap 35, or 36 of the required 120. Pace car about to come off track.
This is the first time that a driver other than Jimmy Hayden will be leading the field to the green. It's Tyler Tomasi in the 53 car will have that luxury this time, and he runs away with it. Sean Ryan, multiple car lengths back, and here's the 88. Caleb Clifton up 8 spots. We've yet to even talk about Caleb yet today. Curtis, he's a standout driver in his own right, and now he's up where he should be, currently sitting in that second place spot battling Sean.
Yeah, he's going back and forth with Sean Ryan for that 2 and 3 spot. But ahead of the pack, Tyler Tomasi, he's got an 0.8 of a second lead on Sean Ryan in that 9 car. So 53 up in front and doing pretty well. And on his first restart, very good work from the top of the group. About 2 seconds separate as we have yet another caution, our 5th one of the day. Through or just off the restart. So everybody will be getting gridded back up again. We'll see where the issue lies.
Now, if you're Jimmy Hayden, did you make the right decision going into the pit lane? I would say absolutely at this point, because he's currently sitting in the 6th position. He was down 21 spots when he entered in a pit lane, and now he's more or less exactly where he was after that pit stop. And if you're Sean Ryan, if you're Tyler Tomasi, do you decide to go into the pits now, or do you hold out?
I mean, my answer would be, before I even saw most of them head into the pit box just now, yes. Yeah, I think you take the opportunity. Jimmy Hayden beat him to the punch. He was banking on another caution coming out, and he got exactly what he was looking for. And we're seeing a pretty good number of cautions and wondering where everything shook out here that caused us to go one more time. Looks like Andrew Hardcastle got sideways with the help of Brian Vols on that outside wall.
The 22 car was just issued a warning from race control in route rack, currently in race control for the issue that we just saw on track. Nothing major, but it's just kind of the furrowed black flag warning to calm things down, because honestly, this race is starting to become the battle of who can throw the most yellows, Curtis.
Yeah, that's unfortunately, we're watching an iRace, an actual street stock league race, not a game of American football, and where yellow flags are pretty prominent there as well. But these guys generally race clean. There isn't really a problem with respect on the track. Sometimes you just think you can squeeze that teeny weeny little street stock car into a space where it clearly will not fit, and that becomes a whole issue. So this is not a good start for a couple of drivers, and it's been multiple spinouts and multiple issues on a number of occasions for a couple of different drivers here.
Do you think that's just because it's night out, the surface temperature is low, or are our drivers getting antsy because we have 3 events, including this one, until we conclude the season?
Did you just make the long way around of asking the moon is bright? Are you feeling all right? Is that
something like that?
Yeah, okay. I'll allow it. I don't think that has as much bearing, only because I know these guys know how to race. This track is a little bit tricky, admittedly, but the overall mentality of a lot of these racers, not necessarily trying to show up anybody, not necessarily trying to be over aggressive. I think it gets to the point where they just make mistakes logistically, thinking they can squeeze in spots where they really can't. And the lack of spotter, I think, doesn't exactly help in a lot of cases. There are a few that run with them, but not everybody. And as you see everybody getting gridded back up and ready to go again. Lap 43 is where they will get started one more time after our 5th caution of the day.
It's going to be Jacob Newman and the 00 car with Jimmy Hayden on the outside. Now, Jimmy Hayden has had multiple restarts where he's been on the inside lane. It's now an opportunity for Jimmy Hayden to be able to prove himself on a completely different line. It's not going to be the green flag thrown. It was delayed just a bit, and it just chokes up the entire field, allowing Newman, that 00 car, to pull away, but Jimmy Hayden was also very aware of that. We've seen the flags be thrown really early for most of these cautions, most of these restarts. It's the first time that we've seen it delayed, and our drivers were just not prepared for it.
And that was not long before Jimmy Hayden was immediately back out in front of the 00 in Newman. It was an inside turn, and Jimmy Hayden is away. He's about a quarter second ahead of Newman at this point. They're side by side behind him though, as you have double. 4 cars immediately in that same group. Cole Micret, one of those, as he's trying to work his way forward towards the front of the pack. But Jimmy Hayden now in a very noticeably comfortable position at the top of the grid.
Talked about the gamble, his pit strategy gamble, the first driver into the pit lane, and it seems like it has not affected his run at all. He returns back to his first place spot as we return back to the yellow flag being thrown once again. And are we going to see another delayed start? Almost what I thought coming from the road racing world, an aborted start, because that's what it looks like to me when you just never see that green flag be thrown. I mean, it happens all the time in SCCA racing where you're waiting for that green flag to drop and you just see the flag waver shaking their head no, that you're not going to get the green flag that lap.
Jason Heisey is unfortunately in the pits for some damage. 25-second pit job at the moment. We'll see how long he's in there if he can make it back out. He was I believe, the beneficiary, if you want to call it that, of that caution just got thrown. We're already at number 6. Those of you that guessed 6, your number's probably up at the next one, closest without going over. But we are not quite halfway through this race. We've had more yellow flag laps than we've had green flag laps at the moment. Hopefully that gets fixed as we get towards the middle part of this race.
So I have an update on how the green flag is actually thrown. So the leader, in that case, 00 of Jacob Newman, actually dictates when the green flag is thrown. So very similar to with the restart zones that we currently see in NASCAR, where the leader has a certain window to accelerate, and when the acceleration takes place, that's when the green flag was dropped. So Newman preferred a later start, and the drivers behind Newman just weren't prepared for it. And that's one of the luxuries that you have as being that pole-seated car. You can kind of play this mind game. When I'm on pole, I love to do the same thing. I prefer really slow starts because drivers just sometimes struggle to climb the gears.
Yeah, and also you just get to the point where you've had so many cautions at this point, you get a little bit impatient with everything going on. You want to get green as fast as possible. You want to get to your top speed as fast as possible, try to put some track underneath you, but the coming through and trying to do that in a space where you have to be dictated by the people in front of you can be rather difficult. There's been many people goaded into penalties because of that, because you're not supposed to pass that lead car before the lap actually starts. So it's an interesting scenario for those that are in that position, the impatient ones. It can be a very, very bad trait or rough trait to try to navigate with in an iRacing community such as this.
I wonder what Jacob Newman, that 00 car, is going to do now that he's going to be on the outside lane. He won't have the luxury of controlling this restart. I guess it's his best interest to be able to immediately slot in behind Jimmy Hayden. We've seen the starts that Jimmy Hayden prefers, that is accelerate as soon as possible and immediately hop up to that high line. The way that Jimmy Hayden has been doing it, he actually accelerates almost in, I guess we'll call it like the final portion of that corner, so he has a straight line up to driver's right or to the top line.
And honestly, it's a pretty good unobtrusive way to get some good speed and keep with the lead car. So that makes a lot of sense going forward. But everybody's going to get gridded back up. They're going to try to get it done here on this lap. But I think we will have, looks like everybody's getting in position. So we should have green flag at the end of this lap, as we'll have green flag again. And we're on lap number 50 of 120, 70 laps to go at Downshift Esports, presented by Minor League Esports. There's a lot of names being dropped in chat. Looks like Deathman wants Newman to take it. We just talked about him a little bit, and there's a whole bunch. Looks like Leachy was trying for Hardcastle. Hardcastle's had a bit of a hard day, all told, as we are back green flag racing one more time. And look who's ahead of the pack. It is indeed Jimmy Hayden, but just 3/10 behind him is Jacob Newman.
Was the rest of the field sleeping there, Curtis? Where did Jimmy Hayden go? He just strapped himself with full boost and flew on forward, and the field behind him was sleeping. Three wide is difficult to do. The cars wash up. That is the 96 in a dangerous position, and it gets worse. The sandwich collapses, and drivers are being collected. Brian Vols drives straight through at the 22 as well. That's the big one that we've been alluding to. Yep. Unfortunately, it does take place. Multiple drivers involved, multiple cars in drive, Brian Vols being one of them.
And that is, we zoom in and we're wrecking boys. Leachy live in the Twitch chat at MLE Sports GG. Yes, exactly. The front straight was the culprit there. We'll see where that came from, but 3 wide will do that to you when you're moving at those speeds and with that kind of traffic. Makes things rather rough trying to get through.
Yeah, that was just the bottom line, being a little bit too tight. The car understeers, forces it wide, and when you're 3 wide, you have nowhere to go up to the car behind. Bouncing off the wall once again, you're just a passenger at that point. You're ricocheting off the wall, and you just have to hope that the drivers are able to deaccelerate the car behind. I mean, look at the chain reaction it causes. All the cars just start to stack up. I mean, the initial incident doesn't take... There's 2 incidents. Initially into the corner, and then on the mid-portion of the straightaway, and even with the cars already deaccelerating, it's just not enough. These cars are traveling relatively quickly. We talked about it's about 80 miles per hour into the turns, and then on the straightaways it's over 100, and there's just nothing you can do.
Yeah, not when you have that kind of change in speeds and you're trying to navigate around everybody else who's there at those speeds a little bit before or after you. But unfortunate on that one. That is our 7th caution of the day, as the bit of an issue for them trying to get free and get themselves into open road. Lap 55 is where they're at, which is a little less than half of our way home. 2 more races after this, one at Charlotte, the second one at Phoenix, both of which we have seen earlier on in this Downshift Esports season. Chris Curtis and Brian Schubert along with for the ride. It's been a decent day. It's been a caution-filled race, but a lot of racing left as we have just over half the race to go.
I see Jimmy hopping down the field. Is that my timing and scoring bugging out again, or is he in the pits? I mean, he was the first. He was the first driver to pit. That was back on lap 31, so we are starting to approach that. Oh, he's still in first place. My timing and scoring is just.
Oh, I saw him in the car. Then that's my fault. Okay.
I mean, again, 3 brain cells, man. I just see flashing numbers of him falling through the field. I'm like, uh-oh, where has Jimmy gone? Is he back in the pits? Did his car erupt? Did he, bang an engine or something along those lines? Nope. It is just timing and scoring saying, not today, Chief.
Yeah, sometimes the timing and scoring sheet that iRacing provides can be a little bit wonky, but it's fine. It's still a pretty valuable resource to us here in the broadcast booth. But we are in lap, we're just about halfway there. At this point, lap 57, about to commence out of 120. And curious to when the pace car thinks enough is going to be enough. Don't imagine it'll be too much longer before we're ready to go. And but yeah, the lights are off, so we should have just about a half lap to go. And we'll be underway again for the 8th time today. We'll have a restart.
We've been talking a lot about Jimmy Hayden and Newman in the 00 car, 15 positions up. What about Anderson in the 36 car, starting on the outside row of outside row of row 2? I mean, that 36 car has now found themselves up and with some of the best drivers that Downshift has to offer. And I'm really curious to see what he's going to be able to do behind that 00 car.
How does he measure up is what you're asking. And I did very curious of that myself, as everybody's up and gridding at this point. See if they can get themselves going around this straightaway. and get us going again for lap number 58. Hayden, Newman, Mykrit, 1, 2, 3. Daniel Anderson is number 4. Logan Kogar, 5. Sean Ryan sitting currently in the number 6 spot. He could really use a jolt to the top of the leaderboard as it sits right now. Hayden got a real good jump. He's got Tomasi on him, but he's slowed to a crawl. Now Tomasi gets up in his, or I'm sorry, that's Mykrit who gets up into his spot. Puts a nose to the spoiler, but not able to get anything done as we go on. Both Mykrit and Hayden, one by one, along the top of the grid at the moment. Should be fun to see where these two end up.
Look at that 45 car now in third place, Logan Karg. I mean, that's what, 9 positions up at this point. We're seeing this field just turn over and turn over. And is that a yellow, Curtis?
Yes, it is. Yes,
it
is.
again.
For the 7th time today, we are going to go yellow one more time. Actually, I think it's number 8.
It's
at
8
this point. So those of you that went 7 or under, you lose. Go ahead and leave your change by the door. Unfortunate for that group, as they're not able to quite get things done.
Unfortunate. Once the last caution we had was back on lap 52. And it gets thrown again in lap 59. What shenanigans took place here this time? Oh, the 32 car didn't quite grab enough brake. And unfortunately, that's the 15 of Kenny McGrath. Once again, the unfortunate victim in an accident that he had no part being in. He just finds himself being hit from behind.
Yeah, tried to correct it. Unfortunately, took the 32 with him. And that's unfortunate for Kenny McGrath. He'll go into the pits and see how long he stays in there trying to repair some damage. But lap 61, another fun-filled yellow flag affair at USA International, as this is a bit of a yellow flag fest as it sits right now.
8 yellow flags, and Kenny McGrath has been a contributing factor of 3 of them. Just not a good place for him to be in. Again, he's been kind of an innocent bystander. The last one, he got hit twice, that found himself up the wall. But, I mean, that is just short track racing. You have a lot of cars occupying well under a mile-long circuit, and you just can't occupy the same place as the drivers around you. I guess it's the exact opposite of the pace car. You could be inside the pace car, but you can't be inside your fellow competitors.
Yeah, and that's the kind of tough thing about short tracks is everyone likes short track racing and the wrecks and the crashes and the fun, but you really kind of miss the speedways and even the super speedways at times. You can get up towards that 150, 200 miles an hour and not even blink an eye. So these guys typically aren't going that fast, but come next week you're at Charlotte, you may see things start to open up as far as the ability and the comprehension. So it'll be fun.
Jimmy Hayden has been leading this race for the majority of it so far. The only time that he's really fallen off first or second place was the time that he went into the pits. That was back at lap 31, and he was in first place by lap 35. Pardon me, yeah, 38 actually, because of the other yellow flag number 5. And from there, Jimmy Hayden, it's just been his show, and this is exactly where he wants to be, currently leading the points championship. And the runner-up in the points championship, Sean Ryan, the 9 car, is sitting a few spots behind.
Well, if you're Jimmy Hayden, you're just content. You're sitting here going around the track at a pace that's controlled. Nobody can pass you. He's perfectly fine in this spot, just kind of waiting for things to pass on by, because we know he has the closing speed. We know he can put this race away when he needs to, and it'll be some time before he needs to worry about that. But the more you are on caution, the less fuel you're using, as opposed to running things really hot, the longer your tires are going to last, as these tires are they're not getting quite to the temperature, and it's just an evening stroll at this point, as it has been for a majority of this race.
His car lights are out. Look for Jimmy Hayden taking this field to that green flag. He likes to accelerate early, and there he goes, taking off. Where's the rest of the field? You need to go with him. The 3 car is going to do exactly that. And oh no, the crowd favorite, the 00. Newman just a little bit slow. Sean Ryan trying to push him forward because it's, again, Ryan 5 points behind in the championship run right now, and Ryan has to get back to the front of the field.
He'll still have a chance, I think. He's in top 5 at the moment, but
no!
Oh, no, and we have sideways cars again. People mowing the lawn with their cars. Huge collection on the front stretch, and another yellow flag is out, and Jimmy Hayden seems to have survived all of that as he remains in the top spot.
Look who's in the background. The car is crippled. Poor 44, Brian Vols. I keep talking about him as being the person who just finds themselves in bad positions. At every race we broadcast, poor Brian Vols is just getting shish kebabbed.
That is unfortunate. Yeah, a lot of cars collected in that, and there's going to be some damaged pit stops all around. Kenny McGrath, Chad Lancaster, and Jason Heisey down laps at this point, and we see not 1 or 2 or 3 or 4, but 5 cars in the pits as it sits right now. And we'll see how far everyone else wants to push it. See a lot of previous pit laps of 38 and 32. Paul Nelson and Chad Bass seems to be your freshest cars out there right now.
Sad that one of the crowd favorites, 00 car, is going to find themselves involved in that accident, but looks like minor damage for the most part. Probably nothing that needs to see service unless you bolted those tires or squared those tires during that incident. I mean, again, we're towards the halfway mark of this race, Curtis, and our drivers are going to start to get more and more aggressive, but there is still plenty of racing to be had. Like, we're barely halfway at this point, and it is just getting more and more gnarly, and it seems like both of us are going to bust out on our cautions because we're currently on 9. Your guess was 9. My guess was 10, and I think we might see close to 20 at this point, which is mind-blowing.
Yeah, there's a lot of cautions right now. We haven't had a stretch more than probably 10 laps without a caution of some way, shape, or form, so we'll see if we can get one coming forward. It looks like everyone is single file at the moment. I'm wondering if race control put that into effect and is having everybody single file up instead of running 2 to a grid or 2 to a line. Might make sense in this scenario, putting everybody in a bit of a single file line and taking the control to get things started out of their hands, more or less. So the it'll be interesting to find out where everybody shakes out.
The largest gap that we've had between cautions is 13 laps, and that includes some of the yellow flag laps that we've turned, and that was between caution number 1 on lap 6 and caution number 2 on lap 19. Everything from there has been under 10 laps, which also, again, ladies and gentlemen, it includes some of the laps we're turning under yellow. So our cars are not quite surviving as well as they probably should.
We are averaging a caution every 7 laps as it sits right now.
That's no bueno.
Nope. No, we'll see if we can get that fixed going forward. But but what I'm noticing is some of it is lack of control going into turns. Some of it is quarter paneling somebody or getting underneath somebody, and that's obviously not ideal, but it does happen on occasion. And it might very well be an unintentional thing, but you do have a number of cautions in this race. This is on pace to break the record for cautions as far as Downshift Esports is concerned. So if we can't seem to get it together, wondering what race control is going to try to do to put it together as another good restart for Jimmy Hayden on the horizon for green flag again.
3 car getting pushed by the 53, and look who's on the bottom lane, the 9 car of Sean Ryan. Oh, Newman, you got to be very careful merging back into the lap traffic or back into the hot lane because the leaders are driving on past you, and you called it a good start for Jimmy Hayden. That actually might be his best one so far, as a 3 car just washes a little bit of oversteer, but he's able to keep that car straight.
Jimmy Hayden actually has pushed it up to 3/4 of a second as far as the gap between him and second place Sean Ryan. Cole Micret just on his tails by about 0.3 of a second, and then Tyler Tomasi actually just took that 3 spot from Cole Micret as I was sitting here, tisk, and he's able to keep it going forward. So a good start for Jimmy Hayden puts him a full second ahead of Sean Ryan as we're about quarter of the way through lap 73.
I'd love our lead pack of drivers just to slot in line, start pushing each other, and stop battling for position. You want to just run long this stint. You want to get the max amount of your tires, your max amount of fuel, because one thing that we've yet to really talk about yet, Curtis, is all these yellow flags are, well, dropping the brake temperatures, dropping the tire temperature, and that actually might help our cars run longer stints. However, I don't think our drivers have really prepared for 9 cautions so far. They probably are trying to hit fuel numbers. They're probably trying to pit on a certain lap, but when you have a longevity of 13 laps at max and an average of 7 laps under caution, I mean, how do you actually plan any of your pit stops?
I mean, you don't. You just have to wait for the next caution to come out, essentially. And otherwise, if you see a green flag, if you see a spot for a green flag pit stop, the question is, do you take it? And I don't know that I do. We still have half the race to go. We're on pace for 18 total cautions. So you got to figure that your opportunity is going to be in there somewhere, but anything can happen.
Anything can happen, and it will happen too. I promise you there will be more cautions taking place. Now, this is one of the long stints. Our drivers are slotting in line. They're starting to be a little bit more due diligence with their racecraft. It's exactly where we want them to be. And we haven't quite seen the big gaps where we've seen drivers just hopping up 15 spots or so. Currently, the driver with the most movement right now is Noah Davis in the 7 car, sitting in about 8th spot.
Jimmy Hayden up front, Sean Ryan in the 2 spot, Tyler Tomasi in 3. Your top mover and shaker at the moment, I believe, is actually Coy McGrath, up 8 spots from his starting position at 14. So, yeah, he's your biggest mover and shaker as it sits right now. Noah Davis was involved in a spin out earlier. He's ended up in top 8 so far. And then Brian Vols, who was involved in that last wreck, he is sitting in 11th. So that's not a bad way to go, as he's going to continue to try to work his way towards the front.
Unfortunately, I think Hardcastle was a favorite to play in this event. Unfortunately, I think he is just backed out. So he was on the lead lap. We saw him fight all the way back up to lead lap after being involved in that incident. Unfortunately, he's just dropped now a few laps down. Now, maybe he can get the lucky dog a few times and return back to the lead lap. That's going to be very difficult to do, as we see Sean Ryan just wash out just a bit. A little bit of oversteer on the exit of that corner, allowing for our drivers to start to close on each other.
Sean Ryan in front of Tyler Tomasi by only 0.2 of a second. He's got to realize he's breathing down his neck. But on the other side, only 0.5 of a second separate Sean Ryan and Jimmy Hayden. And there's your 10th caution of the day, as they'll slow it way back down to comic racing.
That's our longest stint between green flags. Caution number 9 was thrown at lap 65, and this one was thrown at lap 80. So we've seen some life in our drivers. They were able to not wreck. That's a plus, but unfortunately, our drivers, again, they're just getting carried away. And I made this joke earlier, but it can't be the fact that we're now racing under the lights, because we saw this track earlier in week number 3. So that can't be the variable that has changed all that much. Maybe it's the lights. Honestly, I think it's the fact that it's the final, we're almost to the final week. We're in week number 8. It's a 10-week season, and our drivers really care about this point championship. They want to earn as many spots on the track as possible, and they are certainly racing like it, but they're racing a smidge too hard.
And they're racing against somebody in the realm of racing that is very good in Jimmy Hayden. As they're trying to catch up to him, he just needs to race once, and he can do basically no wrong. It's really interesting how he has been able to dominate the way he's been.
Can I just say, great discipline for Brian Vols. You could see the red glow of those front brakes as they lock up. Why that's important, I want to highlight that as something that we see in amateur racing or in iRacing. When the car is spinning, drivers just never hop onto the brakes. It's the saying is both feet in, which means clutch and brake. Why? Because when you have the car locked up, it is a predictable car. The car still might move, the car might slide up the track, but at least that way, you as a driver trying to avoid the incident has the ability to just understand that the car with the wheels locked is going to continue in the same movement. So if it's going up track, it's going to continue to go up track. If you lift off those brakes, all of a sudden the tires might gain traction, they might gain grip, and it darts a different direction. And if you're trying to avoid an incident, you don't want to be in that scenario.
New leader Logan Kogar with Jimmy Hayden taking the pit earlier. He is in the third spot after a pretty successful pit. We have the caution flag ending, I believe this, or pretty close to this time by. Everyone's going to get gridded up this next lap and see where they end up. And you start to see them get it together. But a good race so far, 84 laps through, 120 lap race at the at USA International. The pole sitter Jimmy Hayden, big surprise there. He has majority of the poles this season. He's led a majority of the laps. He's been a fun guy to watch, all told, and not putting a ton of distance between him and the other racers. But also, part of that has something to do with the amount of restarts we've had as well.
How did Jimmy fall to third place? Because it was Brian Vols in the 45 car of Logan that spun in front of them. So was that Jimmy coming into the pits? Did I miss that? Or...
Yeah, he came into the pits at lap 81.
Excellent.
Yep.
And that's the thing, right? We talked about the pit strategy of Jimmy Hayden. Last time that he came into the pits was lap 31. And that was a much longer stint. 50 laps. That's just because the cars weren't driving at speed. You had so many. You probably had more cautions than you did green flag laps. And we talked about the fuel strategy. What does that mean? it puts you in a really awkward predicament because you're probably going to need at least 2 more stops, assuming that we continue at the same rate.
Well, the other thing to think about too, as far as I just lost it. That's fine. We're green flag, and we'll get it going again. Lap 86, as it is indeed Logan Kogar in front. Jimmy Hayden has jumped into the 2 spot. You'll see how long he stays in that 2 spot as he's closing that gap very, very nicely as it sits right now. Caleb Clifton and Tyler Tomasi trading 3 and 4, and you start to see some more shuffling in the middle of that pack. More good stuff, but everybody seems to be keeping it together, at least for the time being. And as I say that, another yellow flag comes out, and that is number 12 on the day.
Oh my. I've never seen so many yellow flags in my life. What is the record right now for our league, Downshift? Where are we at caution flag wise? What's the record?
Pretty close. I'm not sure the exact number. I think Drew in chat, if he's there, would probably be able to answer that better than me. But it's a fair amount. There's quite a few. So the record is also quite a few. We've seen a few races kind of get weird as far as the amount of cautions we've seen. A majority of them have been on those short tracks. This is not an easy track to race, especially for those that are more used to longer race tracks. Your mile and a half, and that going to a short track like this is absolutely a culture shock as far as what you're expecting and what you are not expecting. So this is this next decision by them this next decision for multiple cars is going to be really interesting as we get down to the 3/4 of the way through this race.
Again, you just have to survive. That's your sole goal if you're a driver capable of winning this race. And honestly, we've seen so many drivers shuffle their way through the field. I think, honestly, anybody that's currently on the lead lap has the ability to win this race. You just have to hope that you survive when the next big incident happens. And, speaking of drivers who survived incidences, Katie McGrath, the 15 car, Brian Vols, the 44 cars, those are the last cars on the lead lap. Both those drivers have been involved in multiple incidences, and they're still running well, and they're still competitive.
Yeah, for how long is going to be the question, because Kenny's going to need to work his way up to the front of the pack. He's got an 11.5 second gap between him and Logan Kogar at the moment, and that's where it sits. Interesting decisions coming up. Interesting that Logan Kogar still sits in front and was able to keep it through that restart. So we'll see if he is challenged by one Jimmy Hayden or Tyler Tomasi early on in this run.
So, what does this mean? Jimmy Hayden, no longer the lead driver, currently sitting on the outside lane. He has been very strong when he leads the field to the green flag. This is Logan, the 45 car's opportunity to really show Jimmy Hayden what is up. I want to see Logan go for the line that Jimmy Hayden has been running on the initial green flag. What I mean by that is as soon as we exit the corner, immediately hop on the accelerator and hop to that top line. Make sure Jimmy Hayden does not have the ideal line entering into turn one. Try to slow him down as much as possible. Honestly, if you're able to slow down Jimmy Hayden, you might be able to get him to get cannibalized by Tomasi, the 53 car behind.
Yeah, it'd be a bit catastrophic for Jimmy Hayden, who's had a very good season so far in this league. It definitely a favorite to probably take this whole thing. But if he's having issues at these kind of tracks, it makes things that much more difficult. So I'm not sure if he'll actually bring that, but that's a possibility going forward.
Well, let me define terms. What I mean by cannibalize is at least it's a road racing term. So sometimes if you check up, if you're just slower into a corner and you're in your pack racing and there's multiple cars around you, it is advantageous for you as a lead car to encourage the drivers behind you to race each other. Because when they race, that means you as a car in front get to pull away. And that's what cannibalize means, because they slow themselves down.
Yeah, and did you have in front of you have nothing but clean air in front of you to try to get as much distance between you and the rest of the pack. That makes a lot of sense. That makes a ton of sense. We are ready to go, though. Pace cars off the track, and for how long, we will see. We are green flag racing again. Logan Kogar trying to play defense here, and Jimmy Hayden not having any of that. He'll try the outside line, see if he gets there, and he does. Jimmy Hayden takes back the first spot. Logan may take it back in the inside line of this turn. Doesn't look like it's going to happen. And Hayden again out in front. Kogar, Tomasi, Ryan, 2, 3, 4.
Oh, we saw Caleb Clifton, the 88, just wash up track just a bit. He almost touched the safer barrier, though. Great recovery from him. He's a driver that should be racing up to the top end of the field. He's been back and forth all day, and he wants to maintain that spot behind the 9 car of Ryan. He wants to continue to fight on 4, and look at the battle that the 45 car is putting on.
Good stuff from Logan Kogar. He has tasted the lead lap, and he isn't really keen on giving it up just yet. But he's in just behind Jimmy Hayden. There is not a lot of gap there, about 4/10. But Tomasi jumps up and takes his spot. He'll take a crack at Jimmy Hayden before too long as well. And then you see Sean Ryan, the ever-patient Sean Ryan, who has found his way up to number 4 at this point, and plenty of other notable names down towards the bottom of the list right now.
Sean Ryan struggled to negotiate through lap traffic in week 7 when we were road racing back at Lime Rock Park, and so far lap traffic has barely been a factor at all so far here at USA International Speedway, because our drivers are either getting lucky dog after lucky dog because of the 11 cautions that we've seen, or most of our lap down traffic is actually retired because of the incidents that they were involved in earlier. So Sean Ryan's had this ability just to constantly fight for position, and especially Jimmy Hayden currently leading the field. He doesn't have to worry about what's in front of him. All he needs to do is keep on driving, put his head down, and turn fast laps.
Well, we're down to our last roughly 23 laps to go before this one is over. Chris Curtis found Chris Curtis, Brian Schubert, along with you. You're at USA International. This is week number 8, Downshift Esports, presented by Minor League Esports. Just staying alive in the booth with us, as he's hitting all the buttons to make us sound better than we actually do in real life. And we appreciate you guys sticking and staying with us on this Tuesday evening. It's been a fun one. It's been a long one, all told, the sheer amount of cautions, but we're coming down to our last 20 laps already, which is a bit wild, as these laps are very, very short, only 0.6 of a mile at USA.
single file, but look at Jimmy Hayden, and he's just still pulling ahead with every single lap when they turn these 22-second, 23-second lap times. Last lap was a 23:10 for Jimmy Hayden. Every single tenth that he pulls away in front of Tomasi in the 53 car is just a little bit extra wiggle room. But as I say that, no wiggle room given between the 69 car and the 16 car as they're fighting for position. Back and forth they go. Great driver discipline as they're just making it work.
All right. So, Jimmy Hayden still out in front. Nothing really changing at that particular avenues. You see things get separated. He's got himself a little bit of a gap, but it's not too much. About 2/10. And Sean Ryan currently trying to catch up to him. He's over a second behind. He's got Logan Kogar, Cole Mykert 4-5, Caleb Clifton 6. Daniel Anderson, who's worked his way up. He had a bit of a rough start to this race, Brian, with in the 36 car, as he was spun out on a couple of occasions. And even Coy McGrath is working his way back up towards the top of the pack as well. So a good job by the middle of the pack to try to stay consistent.
I want to go back to the battle of Crawford in the 69 car and Stores up in the 16. Look who has returned because of that battle. Brian Vols was a second gap at the start of this fight. And now Brian Vols is there, tenths of a second behind that 16 car. Again, that's Storzum in the 16. This is what we were talking about earlier. We mentioned cannibalization when we're racing. This is exactly what happens when the 16 and the 69 are fighting. It allows Brian Vols to return. And once the drivers stop fighting each other, surprise, Brian Vols starts to fall off because of that damaged race car. And now Crawford is allowed to start to pressure Coy in the 2 car.
Yeah, the interesting thing to think about too, if you guys are new to Downshift Esports, we run a 2 GWC limit. And what that means for those of you just tuning in for the first time, GWC is green, white, checkered. We will try a green, white, checkered twice after actually, I think it might be 3 times if I'm not mistaken. I think it's the 3 strikes you're out. So 3 green, white, checkers. After the 3rd one, where you are is where you finish at that point. So that's something to absolutely think about going into this. The reason I say that is because we've seen a number of cautions at this point. Obviously, especially if you guys are just joining us, it's been a bit of a yellow flag. We've had more yellow flag than green flag racing, although we're in our longest line now. The green, white, checkered, essentially it's a 2-lap sprint to the finish. If we finish it, fantastic. If there's another caution, we try again. Same scenario once more, and then the 3rd one is going to be, or the last caution thrown is where everybody finishes at that point. So we have about 12 laps to go. I'm going to ask you, where do the top 3 finish this race? Do you think they finish 1, 2, 3, or do you see one of the back of the pack or middle of the pack come up and try to take one of their spots?
I think Caleb Clifton moves up 2 spots, and it's going to go Hayden, Tomasi, Ryan, and Clifton. That'll be my top 4. And then actually I would put Davis finishing top 5. And speaking about a top 5 runner, did you notice the 45 car of Logan Kogar, who was running so well, has just entered into the pits? You alluded to this earlier, Curtis. We're not going to see a lot of green flags unless a driver makes a mistake, and it looks like that 45 car just tried to run a little bit too long, and now they find themselves off the lead lap, 2 laps down.
Well, and we are in a position now where you have our longest green flag stint of the race, and it comes at the very end. So that creates interesting scenarios where you bank on cautions and then all of a sudden you don't get any. And part of that has something to do with the fact that some of these guys are over half the field is a lap or more down at this point. So that creates interesting scenarios for those that are on the lead lap of how much further do you want to push it. They're lap 82, Daniel Anderson is 81. There's a number 81 have the oldest tires in the race so far. So that is, whether it be tires, whether it be fuel, is something to keep an eye on as we get to the last few laps or so. Can they go 8 more laps on what they have? That's the question.
And even if we do get a caution, do you come in to get better tires? Because as you mentioned, lap 81 was the last time that Jimmy Hayden was into the pits. And if an enterprising driver will say, like somebody like Noah Davis or even Brian Vols, the last driver in the lead lap, is it in their best interest if the yellow flag is thrown now? Do you hop into the pits, get better tires, and try to race somebody like Jimmy Hayden on really old tires?
Yeah, that's the big time question. Or at the very least, if you can't get past Hayden, you got to fight with everybody else who decided to come down pit road as well. So that is almost wondering if it's worth it at that point. We are down to our last 6 laps, just about to hit lap 115, and we have just now still a 0.2 of a second gap between Jimmy Hayden and Tyler Tomasi. He's been consistently up there all race long.
Look who's behind, the 9 car of Sean Ryan attempting to close that gap. He is praying that the 2 drivers in front of him, Tomasi and Hayden, start to fight. He wants to close that gap, and Jamie Hayden's going to try to keep that 53 behind him for as long as possible. Not yet a defensive line. He's trying to run the best that he can. He has to be turning quick laps, and he still is. The best time published is a 22.9 from Jimmy Hayden, and the last lap turn was a 23.21, so we're still very close to some of the fastest laps of the evening.
Yeah, curious to see where the speeds are going to compare. As we mentioned, older tires, and you're looking, you called it right on the head, about 23 seconds on the older tires. You see them running about 22 early or maybe late 21s for lap times when they have fresh tires. That's going to be a major difference going forward. But right now, Tomasi can literally smell the exhaust from Jimmy Hayden's bumper. Those two have been running neck and neck all day long. Tomasi's got to be careful. He actually nearly made contact with the quarter panel there. Not able to get it done. We're down to our last now lap 118. Almost 2 laps to go. As these guys getting real close, real chummy. Tomasi, you got to wonder when he's going to try to make that move.
9 cars also closing, so that window of opportunity of Tomasi, he doesn't have a lot left. It's a small track, and with 2 laps to go, about to cross for the white flag, man, you're going to have to move now. The moment you do, Sean Ryan, now electing the outside lane, will be happy to participate.
We will see. Very close times here. This is going to be your white flag lap. Tomasi just behind him, spins him a little bit. He's going to try to pass him here on the back stretch. Jimmy Hayden trying to keep the outside lane. He's going to try to make an aggressive turn here. Take the inside line. Tomasi's right there. They're neck and neck through turn 3 into turn 4. Tomasi takes the lead. He's going to try to take it, and he is going to. Tomasi does it on the last lap, the quarter panel bump. Tyler Tomasi takes the win by less than a tenth over Jimmy Hayden. What a pass on the last lap of the race.
0.04 of a second separate first and second place. Brilliant racecraft being demonstrated by Tomasi there. Incredible. The second race win now for Tomasi. Again, Jimmy Hayden has 5 race wins in the Street Stock Series. And that was incredible for Tyler Tomasi and that 53 car to battle against the grand champion of Downshift Esports. I mean, Jimmy Hayden has been winning so many races, both here in Street Stocks and in the Vs, and Tomasi made it look easy.
Yeah, that's a great effort by Tyler Tomasi, who was able to kind of keep with Hayden all the way up until it was time to make a move. And on the biggest green flag, and you see it here, the biggest green flag run of the day, the little bump is all it takes. Little bump, start to work on spinning them a little bit, and then Tomasi just takes the spot on the back stretch. That was a lot of fun. Really good race run by Tomasi, and a lot of cautions, but ultimately the chaos reigns, and a little bit of physicality is what was needed as you see him cross the finish line there. Very good work from him. We have more coverage coming as we take a look at the unofficial standings here in just a minute. I want to see where everything shakes out before post-race points are awarded, and we'll have some conversations come in with some of the racers in this go. Grid is as follows. Let's go ahead and talk about how everybody finished. Tomasi gets the win. Jimmy Hayden, Sean Ryan, 1, 2, 3. Cole Meichert, Caleb Clifton, Noah Davis, your top 6. Go ahead and continue on from there.
Anderson, a driver who came up multiple spots, 4 spots. Coy McGrath up 6 spots. Crawford down 1, and Storsum. We saw the great battle between Crawford in the 69 and Storsum during the latter stage of that race, and it seems like Crawford will maintain that position. Brian Vols, the 44 car, won the final cars on the lead lap, involved in multiple instances. Great for him to come up almost a top 10 finish for him.
Yeah, very good from him. Vols, who's had a bit of a run of rough luck, he ends up in just after Storsum. Brandon Ritchie, Logan Kogar, who led a couple laps in this race behind him. Jacob Newman, the 00, he was at the top of the pack early on in the race, but was not really able to keep it going. Paul Nelson, Kenny McGrath, Arthur Clements, and then Chad Lancaster, who could really just not get it going in this race, along with Andrew Hardcastle, Jet Biachamp, and Chad Bass, along with Jason Heisey, who ended up going back behind the wall a little early in this go. So that brings us to our unofficial standings for the for the championships points right now. It is Jimmy Hayden who should still be out in front, depending on how everything shakes out as we get those on your screen. It is Hayden out in front. Sean Ryan still 2. Cole Meichert still 3. Chad Lancaster, even with the performance today, ends up taking the 5th spot. But Tyler Tomasi, who actually is seen on that leaderboard now in the 18th position, that's someone to keep an eye out maybe for next season going forward. But Jimmy Hayden in the number 2 spot in the race and the number 1 spot in the standings so far. We've got more to come, post-race coverage from USA International when we come back. This is Downshift Esports presented by Minor League Esports. Stay right there. And welcome back into USA International Speedway, Week 8 of Downshift Esports Street Stock League, presented by Minor League Esports. Chris Curtis, Brian Schubert in the broadcast booth with you in a very good race with a bit of a chaotic ending, as it is Tyler Tomasi who ends up with the win over Jimmy Hayden, who led a majority of the race. But good stuff by all involved. Got the standings actually updated now, as the ones we showed you before were a little bit outdated from before this week started. Let's show you the after week standings with the new positions intact. This is, of course, unofficial and before any post race points are given out. Hayden, Ryan, Micrit 1, 2, 3, as that stayed put. Brian, as the rest of the pack really, the positions may not have changed, but the differentials really did.
Yeah, we started the day off with a 5-point differential between Hayden and Ryan, and now it's all the way up to 7. I say all the way up. It's still not that big of a gap, and if you're Jimmy Hayden going into the final 2 weeks, I mean, 7 points is not enough to guarantee a championship. I mean, if one of those drivers, Hayden or Ryan, gets involved in an incident, their championship run may be over. I mean, we had 11 cautions today, Curtis. That could happen in another future event.
Yeah, no, absolutely. That's absolutely true. As we get into the now 9th week coming up over at Charlotte, they only have 2 races left in this regular season, so those gaps become a little bit bigger each and every lap that's taken. But let's have some conversations here. We have some good post-race personalities, and want to talk to Caleb Clifton, who ended up with a 5th place finish. I want to bring him in here and have a conversation with him. Caleb Clifton, you got a copy?
Do.
Hey, welcome in, sir. Welcome in. Good race. I'm bringing you in. There was mention of a really nice battle between you and Cole Micrit towards the end of that race, and I kind of want to get how your race went, start to finish, in a pretty condensed amount of time, and kind of give us the run through of how that battle went.
Yeah. So my race, I think I started 10th, so up 5 places. I'm pretty happy with that.
Yeah.
I feel like it could have been 6 places if I had maybe one more lap.
Okay.
On lap 65, there was a wreck at the very front of the field, and I managed to somehow get through it. I don't know if Stream caught it, but it was a minefield, and I'm amazed that my car was in one piece afterwards. So to be able to recover out of that and not effectively get wrecked for no reason, it feels good to finish the race. Cole was blocking pretty hard at the end, which I can't fault him for. One of them was a little bit sketch, and I'm surprised he held the car down. But I was munching on his bumper for sure.
That's probably the best way I've ever heard that described. That being said, going into the last couple weeks, are you racing both weeks, or you or what's going on with you? And then where do you look? What's one of your goals? What are your goals for the last couple races at Charlotte and Phoenix?
I'm definitely racing both. I was running the V League, and I decided to join this league a little bit late. I didn't quite realize at the time that the point structure in this league means that starting a couple races late, I effectively have no shot, even if I was to win every single race. But we kind of have like a mid-championship of people who started in the middle of the race, so we're kind of going through with that, and I just want to, get as much as I can. It'd be nice to get a win, but I'm relatively new to ovals, so I'm kind of feeling my way through this as we go. So I'm just happy to be able to finish races and move forward in the pack.
Fair enough. Brian, you got anything?
Well, you described that you were munching on the back bumper of the 3 car, but there was a lot of munching going on throughout the entire field. 11 cautions today. How did that affect your race?
A couple of them were nice. I was able to get through with 2 stops, pretty evenly spaced. Took 2 tires on the first one, 4 on the second one. Definitely did not need 4 tires, though. That was a mistake on my part. But yeah, some of the cautions, it kind of wasn't great because I'd make up a couple positions, but then I'd be on the outside for the restart, and there's no outside lane here, so
yeah.
I don't think it was too many cautions. It definitely wasn't too few cautions, but I don't really think it was too many. I think it was for the track. Right. I think it was about what we would expect. I mean, the end, we had, 30 green laps to finish the race? That was pretty nice.
The longest green flag run in the race was at the very end, so that's definitely true. Anybody you would like to shout out?
Coy, because when I was trying to get through that lap 65 10-car pileup, he kept his head about him, and if he hadn't been on his brake pedal, I would have been involved in the wreck too.
Fair enough. Cool. All right. Well, thank you very much for the time, and good work on this race. The top 5 for Caleb Clifton, and good luck at Charlotte and at Phoenix the next couple of weeks. And we look forward to hearing from you.
Thank you very much.
Absolutely, and that is Caleb Clifton, top 5 for him. And we're going to talk to his battery mate and the Bumper Munch E, all told, and Cole Micret, who ended up in the 4th spot. Cole, I'm going to bring you in now. And Cole Micret, you got a copy.
I got you.
Very good. First of all, congrats on the top 4 finish for you. We had a conversation with Caleb just now about him munching on your back bumper there at the very end. I want to talk to you kind of about your race, how it went. I know there's a lot of cautions, but take us through that battle at the end, trying to block him from the pass.
I was just doing the best I could to get down and keep that inside line, because it's almost impossible to get around on the outside here at Lakeland. But, I was driving my line, he was driving his line, and my bumper looked real tasty, so he tried to get a taste a couple times. And, I just flipped that wheel right and go around the corner as best as I could. So
I like it. Brian, you got anything for it?
First off, what flavor is your bumper?
Oh my God, I knew he was going to go there.
mellow yellow.
Mellow yellow.
I like it.
That was my big question of the day, my friend. Do you have anyone to shout out? Anybody, that helped you be successful today?
I mean, shout out to the other mellow yellow car in the 45. Sorry the incident happened the way it did, but at the end there can only be one.
Logan. Yeah. We saw that towards the end at the after the start finish line. So, Cole, appreciate the time. Good race. Do you have any plans for the next couple weeks? Are you going to be in both races?
Oh, I plan on it unless I die. But I don't plan on dying.
Let's not wish that on you. I mean,
no, I don't wish to die, but
we look forward to seeing you in your mellow yellow bumper in 1 week's time over at Charlotte. Appreciate the time, buddy.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Yep, cheers. Absolutely. And let's bring up one Jimmy Hayden as well. Jimmy Hayden, you got a copy?
Loud and clear.
Hey, sir, how are you?
I'm great.
Yeah, fair enough. Top 2 finish for you on a pretty good bump and run from one Tyler Tomasi on the backstretch of the last lap. Take us through.
What you're talking
about. I like it. Take us through your race. And you managed to actually avoid a lot of the issues, probably by being out in front of those 11 cautions. How did your race go from your point of view?
Yeah, no, I was pretty much second best all day long. I don't know. I don't know what to tell you.
Okay.
Only led 92 laps and, led every session, but at the end of the day, I was second best. I mean, you can only break so deep into the corner without, using someone else to slow me down. So, Tyler was definitely the class of the field today, and congrats to him.
Good stuff. You go in 8 points ahead for at least unofficially into the next couple of weeks. We are officially done more or less with the short tracks. Not that has stopped you before, because you have a 1.5 mile win from earlier in the season. I think you actually have 2. Going back into Charlotte, draft comes back into play. Do you have to change your mindset at all coming off these short tracks back into the 1.5 mile?
No, I mean, I'm pretty good at Charlotte, so I'm not too worried about it. But at least now I know the car has a front bumper on it, so at least I need to use that next week.
That's awesome. All right, cool. Brian, you got anything for Jimmy?
Got a couple.
All right.
First off, Jimmy, congrats I know it wasn't what you wanted, but I mean, you've still had dominant performances on everything you do, from the street stocks to the Vs. But going into this race, week number 8, what was your pit strategy coming in, and then how did that change when we had the marathon of 11 cautions?
I mean, pit strategy was just make sure I had enough gas the whole race. I don't know. I knew the window, like, flat out was probably like 30, 35 laps or so. So, yeah, I don't know. I just kind of was playing it safe in the beginning. Took a little bit of a risk at the end. I put it a little early, but figured we'd have at least one caution and level me out. And I probably finished the race with like a lap or 2 left to gas, but so it ended up working out. Pit strategy wise, I guess.
Fair enough. Anybody you want to give some love to, shout out before we let you go tonight?
Oh, Curtis, I can't hear you. Sorry. let me
Sorry.
do something
No, you're good.
My headset
Anybody
sucks.
Anybody
Alright,
you
go
want to
ahead.
shout out, give some love to before we let you go tonight?
I don't think anyone was watching on my part, but yeah, no, I mean, for the most part, I mean, it was a clean race. I had raced really hard with, with Cole and Sean, and it's pretty clean with everybody. So Caleb too. Yeah, it was a pretty good race. Shout out to those guys. Look forward to racing with them next week.
You're good. All right. Thank you very much, Jimmy. Appreciate it. And we look forward to seeing you next week as well. Very good. Okay.
I can't hear you. Sorry.
You're okay, Jimmy. We appreciate it. Thank you.
Yep, thanks.
All right. And then the man of the last 30 seconds of the race, Tyler Tomasi, comes up with the bump and run on the points leader in the championship standings. He ends up getting the win at USA International. Tyler, first of all, congrats on the win. You had one of the most consistent cars all night, kind of waited your turn and took the spot. Take us through your race most of the way through, and then your mentality going into the last lap.
It was a very long race, and I guess they're paying a lot of money to finish last, because man, those guys were wrecking back there. So, but besides that, yeah, I actually thought my race was gonna be over halfway through it, because I pitted way too early and started like 25th and had to pretty much be in probably the scariest pack I've ever been in, and so able to avoid big wrecks, especially one coming out of 4 where there was a wreck going into 3 and 4 and then a wreck on the straightaway all in one lap. And then got up front, lost a spot on pit road, then got back to second, and I really didn't want to move him. Just we got into 1 and 2 and he just checked up, and once you get into the guy, it don't matter if you meant to do it or not, it's the last lap, now you just gotta go. So felt like I raced him pretty clean though once we were side by side. Didn't want to use him up, and it was a good finish.
Yeah, fair enough. Brian, you got anything more?
I want to know more about your restarts, because we saw Jimmy Hayden's restarts where he would start earlier, accelerating early out of turn 4, and you, even on the outside lane, were the only driver in this field to be able to hold Jimmy Hayden on those restarts. What were you doing different than the rest of the pack?
I really don't know.
Surviving.
I don't know. I have tricks that I won't say, because there's probably some people who don't know, but most people know what you gotta do to get good restarts. You don't go first, but you kind of do. I don't know. It's almost like you kind of trick the guy into going when you want him to go, in a way.
So to follow that up, when we saw, I think it was Newman that had that very late restart, did that affect you at all?
I'll say that again.
When we saw Jacob Newman in the 00 car have that really late start where it was almost underneath the flag stand, that really delayed start where half the field almost crashed after that. Did that affect you at all? Or
honestly, dude, I really don't remember that one. There's a lot of restarts.
we remember for the broadcast booth, because half of the field accelerates and then they deaccelerate, where he's like, uh-oh, the green isn't gone yet.
Right.
Yeah, I don't. Dude, there's so many restarts that I don't remember. I just remember like the ones where I was leading, or the ones where I almost crashed.
This was okay. So this was the ones that you weren't leading, and the one that Jimmy Hayden wasn't leading. It was the other one, the only one.
I think it was when I was way in the back, and I was like leaving a big gap because I figured they were gonna check up. So I don't think I was really affected by it. If anything, it kind of actually worked out because I was right to everyone's bumper.
Fair enough. Tyler, anybody you want to shout out? And anybody watching, anybody you want to give some love to?
Yeah, Tomasi Lord Associates, all my friends and family. And yeah, that's about it.
Cool. All right. Well, congrats on the win. Appreciate you. And your second win of the season
Thank
at
you.
Downshift. And looking forward to seeing you the next couple weeks.
All right, see you then.
Very good.
Cheers.
That being said, we that about finishes things up for us here at Downshift Esports, presented by Minor League Esports. For Brian Schubert and Jesse English, I'm Chris Curtis, along with Ben Ruprock, who's race control tonight, saying goodbye and good night from both Downshift Esports on Twitch. Drop a follow there, and Minor League Esports on Twitch. Drop a follow there as well. Thank you very much. We will see you guys next time. Stay tuned for the host, and we will see you next week at Charlotte.
Can you dig it?